The Hole in the Dike, retold by Norma Green. Pictures by Eric Carle. HarperCollins Publishers. Copyright 1974.
Well, boys and girls, this week would be the time that we'd be busy getting ready for Tulip Festival, and I'm sorry to say we just won't be able to celebrate Tulip Festival this year. But we can still enjoy the beautiful flowers that are growing all over town, and I have a book for you about a brave little Dutch boy who helps to save his town. It's called The Hole in the Dike.
A long time ago, a boy named Peter lived in Holland. He lived with his mother and father in a cottage next to a tulip field. Peter loved to look at the old windmills turning slowly. He loved to look at the sea. In Holland, the land is very low, and the sea is very high. The land is kept safe and dry by high, strong walls called dikes. One day, Peter went to visit a friend who lived by the seaside. As he started for home, he saw that the sun was setting and the sky was growing dark. "Oh, I must hurry, or I shall be late for supper," said Peter. "Take the short cut along the top of the dike," his friend said, and they waved goodbye. Peter wheeled his bike onto the road on top of the dike. It had rained for several days, and the water looked higher than usual. Peter thought, "It's lucky for me that the dikes are high and strong. Without these dikes, the land would be flooded and everything would be washed away." Suddenly, he heard a soft, gurgling noise. He saw a small stream of water trickling through a hole in the dike below. Peter got off his bike to see what was wrong. He couldn't believe his eyes. There, in the big, strong dike, there was a leak. Peter slid down to the bottom of the dike. He put his finger in the hole to keep the water from coming through. He looked around for help, but he could not see anyone on the road. He shouted. Maybe someone in the nearby field would hear him, he thought. Only his echo answered. Everyone had gone home. Peter knew that if he let the water leak through the hole in the dike, that hole would get bigger and bigger. Then the sea would come, it would just come gushing through. The fields and the houses and the windmills would all be flooded. Peter looked around for something to plug up the leak so he could go to the village for help. He put a stone in the hole, then a stick, but the stone and the stick were washed out away by the water. Peter had to stay there alone. He had to use all his strength to keep the water out. From time to time he called for help, but no one heard him. All night long, Peter kept his finger in the dike. His fingers grew cold and numb. He wanted to sleep, but he couldn't give up. At last, early in the morning, Peter heard a welcome sound. Someone was coming. It was the milk cart rumbling down the road. Peter shouted for help. The milkman was surprised to hear someone near that road so early in the morning. He stopped and looked around. "Help!" Peter shouted. "Here I am, at the bottom of the dike. There's a leak in the dike. Help! Help!" The man saw Peter and hurried down to him. Peter showed him the leak and the little stream of water coming through. Peter asked the milkman to hurry to the village. "Tell the people. Ask them to send some men to repair the dike right away." The milkman went as fast as he could. Peter had to stay with his finger in the dike. At last, the men from the village came. They set to work to repair the dike. All the people, they thanked Peter. They carried him on their shoulders, shouting, "Make way for the hero of Holland, the brave boy who saved our land." But Peter did not think of himself as a hero. He had done what he thought was right. He was glad that he could do something for the country he loved so much. Now, boys and girls, that's the end of the story. But I want to tell you, a lot of people thought that this was a true story, that there really was a little boy who saved his town by sticking his finger in a hole in the dike. But that's not true. It's not. Actually, this story actually comes from another book called Hans Brinker, or The Silver Skates. And that was written by an American lady. Her name was Mary Mapes Dodge. Well, she made up this story about Hans Brinker, who wanted to win these silver skates. And one of the chapters in it, Hans had to save the town by putting his finger in the hole in the dike. But it's completely made up. But people in America and all around the world, they heard this story and they thought it was true. So they kept going to Holland to visit. And when they would stop at the towns, they would always ask, "Is this where the little boy who saved the town lived? You know, the boy who stuck his finger in the dike?" Well, those smart people in Holland, they got a good idea. They knew the story was not true. But what they did is they made a statue of this famous little boy sticking his finger in a hole in the dike. And you can see it today. It's in a town called Sparndam. And at the base of the statue, they wrote, "Dedicated to our youth, to honor the boy who symbolizes the perpetual struggle of Holland against the water." Because, the struggle is real. Holland is a very low country. And because of the dikes and the windmills, well, and today they use modern pumps, they keep the water out. And they actually take water from, or land from the sea, pump the water away to make more farmland. That's a pretty ingenious way to create land to live on. I hope you enjoyed the story. Bye.